Over the past few months, years even, the wider community and myself have discussed the prospect of a Sea of Thieves sequel, an engine change, dropping the old consoles, or even new servers. The performance of Sea of Thieves has generally gotten worse over time, but it's not beyond saving. But between talk of these ways to fix the game, I think we're all being a bit naive about the various solutions. Let's get into it. Dropping old generation consoles, or the Xbox One family in this case, is a controversial topic. The install bases on those consoles are massive compared to the series consoles, which currently is not outselling its predecessor. Nonetheless, this has been touted to help improve the game's stability, and while it sort of makes sense, previous gen consoles aren't the issue, nor do they really affect the performance of the game. This argument has conflicting opinions, with some sources alleging that the Xbox One is holding back the game, whereas when Captain Blubber and I asked Mike Chapman about this, he simply stated it doesn't come into consideration when designing new content, which is a half answer, to be fair. Moreover, I can't really see how it affects the bugs or performance of the game. While there is something to be said about developing multiple versions of Sea of Thieves, the PS5 version is much more different to the Xbox versions, since the series and Xbox One versions are the same game, just with different graphic settings. Don't believe me? You could play the Xbox Series version of the game on your hard drive, without putting it on the SSD. And let's not forget, the massive amount of Pirate Emporium sales come from Xbox One users. Imagine cutting off half your customer base while pissing them off with no future updates. It's probably the number one reason why this wasn't done. Dropping the Xbox One support is not going to change the code base of the game. Think how many programmers have worked on a game over 10 years in the making. It's not like building one thing and moving on to the next. It's like a spiderweb that you can't see the end of. I could not fathom how many thousands of lines of code are under the hood. I have a secret newfound interest in Warhammer 40,000, so for this episode we have a very special sponsor from a series very close to my heart. It's Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus. Tacticus is an awesome turn-based strategy game. It's an officially licensed Games Workshop title set amongst the backdrop of Warhammer 40,000's universe. In Tacticus, you can bring some of the universe's most powerful champions into heart-racing skirmishes. You, as the player, always have full control, and superior strategies are the key to victory. You can collect over 70 champions from 70 playable factions straight from the Warhammer 40,000 universe. You can take part in intense battles against other human players, or team up to ponder your next move in co-op, where you can become part of a passionate community of gamers and other Warhammer 40,000 fans. Snowprint Studios are keen to introduce fresh content, new challenges, and game modes in the near future, and have been updating the game constantly since its launch in August 2022. And from now until the 1st of December 2024, you can use the code NOVHELLO, where you can receive 2,000 gold and 50 black stones for free. You can either find the link in the pinned comment or use the QR code on the screen to download Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus today. The new engine debate is an interesting one, and I can see the pros and cons of it. Will porting Sea of Thieves magically make the game less buggy? No. Would rebuilding the game from the ground up on Unreal Engine 5 help? It's more of a case of how effective they want it to be. So if you're rebuilding the game, you might as well make a new one, right? Then, just like the sequel problem, spoiler for later, what happens to years of progression, paid for skins, and more? Well, I for one wouldn't want to start again and lose my pirate, or at least my skins. And if we're playing the same game again, just on a different engine, this is going to be a kick in the bollocks. Everyone hated it when Overwatch 2 did it. Yes, I know it's a sequel, but it's basically the same game. Everyone hated it when Warzone did it, and that's a free-to-play game. So why would this be any different? Unreal Engine was also widely worked on. It's not the standard, but many developers have experience that isn't required with proprietary engines, hence why Halo switched to it recently. Unreal Engine 3 or 4, whatever Sea of Thieves is running on, has the same benefit. With that being said, if Sea of Thieves was moved and could remove a lot of the technical debt, then why not? If everything can be preserved, minus the bugs, then yeah, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Sea of Thieves has always had server performance issues and bugs. Way back at launch, I remember servers going down the pan whenever every ship on the map would head to the Skull Fort, which happened all the time. But now, I'm sure it's due to all the content the game must account for on the server. For instance, the Burning Blade will noticeably decrease server performance. Then, when you add the Fort of the Damned, and Megalodon, and Legend of the Veil, along with the server being at full capacity, things will turn to shit. If you've played any other recent Xbox Game Studios game, they basically all run off Azure servers. These were intended for cloud computing solutions, but their use for gaming has been mixed at best. Anecdotally speaking, I remember Halo Infinite, Halo MCC, Gears 5, and Sea of Thieves all having server issues with synchronization and hit registration. Anecdotally again, I've had issues with all these games, and if you do a little click-clack into Google, you will find threads about it still. The servers must track so much stuff, and track even more things every season. It's like filling up a glass of water when it's already full. The long and short of it is, the servers are shit and seemingly not fit for purpose. Will Microsoft renege on this and create new servers for games? No, because it admits Azure's a failure, at least for gaming anyway. I've spoken about a sequel at length, and I still do think a Sea of Thieves sequel is in development, and that's probably the best option without some serious changes to the live service that we're already experiencing. Imagine being able to make Sea of Thieves from the ground up, market it as a sequel with a new map, content, whatever, and having all the knowledge of the issues encountered over the last 10 years when starting anew. New Game Plus is always easier. While this has several problems like losing progression, the inevitable end of life of our beloved Sea of Thieves, and likely a 70 quid entry fee. I would seriously now consider paying that again to experience Sea of Thieves all over again, or Sea of Thieves 2 in this case. If I could bring my pirate, at least, then I'd be happy. I could even live with losing my cosmetics, just as long as the same mistakes weren't repeated with earnables in Sea of Thieves 2. And to be honest, I think it's already being worked on. I know there's been several detractors in the community, but most of Rare clearly aren't working on Sea of Thieves, since all the content comes from Lucid Games and Flix Interactive. To me, this screams that they're working on something else, and no, it's not Everwild. Hell, Rare even had a new barn opened. There's no way this is just for Sea of Thieves and Everwild, both of which have been in development for years. Well, it's not as simple as having one person or one team work on a single project at a time. I cannot seriously consider that Rare is the primary developer of Sea of Thieves at this point. It even goes hand in hand with the smaller, more impactful updates making up the seasons. It makes the most sense both business-wise and customer experience-wise, and these IP talks would have happened years ago. The Sea of Thieves has felt very stagnant, as if it's some sort of weird pirate purgatory, since the cancellation of adventures. The world has kind of dried up. Like, the world is still the same, there's just less in it. The world used to feel livelier, and now it's a loop of constant events in the sky, and nothing really changes. Back when the Devil's Roar was introduced, it was a very special time for the game. Imagine having such a large map expansion 6 months into the game's release. At this point, we're probably never going to get a map expansion. The whole deal in the lore of the Sea of Thieves is that the Sea of Thieves itself is covered in a shroud that ebbs and flows. This is the reason the Devil's Roar comes to be, and it's why you can go to the Shores of Gold now. But what if this was implemented into the live service? Say Rare & Co did add a new map expansion, but the mist enshrouds the Devil's Roar as a means of keeping the load on the server down. Then next season, the Wilds is gone and the Devil's Roar is back. There's so much on the server that's for a single purpose, like the Shores of Gold, the Heart of Fire, the Coral Fortress and Citadel, or even the Shrines. The teams have used excellent tricks to lower the impact on the server, but I'm sure it still takes up some useful space. Now you're going to say Tall Tales? In that case, Safer Seas should have been utilised as Tall Tale servers. It's different enough from the High Seas that Rare should just embrace this. Mind you, they do struggle with this one build as is, adding another on top of that might do more harm than good. I do think if you were to get a map expansion outside of, say, an instant Sea of the Damned, there's basically no other way of doing this. I would be open to exploring this change instead of just removing or rotating other content. Some have spoken about just stopping new content releases, and we've been through that before. 2023 was one of the most unpopular years for the game, albeit major bugs weren't being squashed, but the back-end work for guilds caused the major delays. So maybe we aren't comparing apples to apples here, but I would be open to have smaller updates or revisiting old content while we focus on the game health. It didn't work in Season 9 due to the main concept being the Chest of Fortune, and trust me, I love the Chest of Fortune, it's just not a lot. I'm talking about widespread rebalancing, new commendations and cosmetics, for old content instead of new things like the Burning Blade. I do think there's a middle ground to be had in terms of bug fixes and content to refresh the game, and if that does exist, I hope older content is sufficiently touched up to bring it into the spotlight and not be overshadowed by the latest toy in the sandbox. But outside of a sequel, full re-release or ditching next gen, there's really not a lot the team can do with a bloated 7-year-old codebase and crappy servers. Oh, and if you recognised some of this, some was taken from another shite video which shouldn't have seen the light of day. Yeah, if you know, there's some trivia for you.